Hello and welcome to the weekly Yes, a podcast where two best friends talk about their joint mission to say yes to life. I am your host, Jara Skagfjord, and co-host is my bestie, the amazing Kristin Guerin. On today's episode, Kristin and I talk about how movies and music are interconnected. We discuss the illusion of safety and wanting to control the outcome, and we talk about nostalgia and the importance of being in the present. For today's Fast Facts, I wanted to clear up just a sticky point that you might hit in this episode where Kristin talks about being in conservatory. I just know that we have a few international listeners on this podcast, and if I was listening to this podcast not having been to the U.S., not having been to school in the U.S., I wouldn't know what a conservatory was. So I just wanted to, out of compassion and understanding for those that might be confused at the word conservatory, what we mean is theater school, when we both went to theater school. Another sticky point that is in the same realm is that she mentions the name of a play. And the name of the play is Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean, Jimmy Dean. That is the name of the play. And of course, Jimmy Dean is referring to James Dean, the old school Hollywood star. So I wanted to let you know in case you reach this point in the episode and you're all kinds of confused. Anyway, I think that is it for today's Fast Facts. So I'm just going to drop you straight into our conversation. Enjoy. I was just thinking the other day, so I went to this a friend's class show, like they were completing a level in improv, and their show was they were doing an improvised James Bond movie.
Oh, that sounds fun.
So they'd been working on the tropes and figuring out what a James Bond movie entails, but everything else was improvised, right? Based on the audience suggestion. And at the beginning, they did like the song and everything. So they started because when James Bond movies open, there's always a brand new song, the Bond song. So the movie usually there's like an opener, like a cold open. And then after that, there's like the song and the credits and it's always like this weird kind of like fluid kind of like music video. And they did that also at the beginning of the improv. And what it made me think of, first of all, it was hilarious. I was like, oh my God, like they even did the song. That's perfect. I love that they did that. But it made me think some of the best songs ever made exist because a movie was made. And they're like, hey, can you write us a song for this? So Bond songs are some of these songs. And I don't know what my point with this is, but I'm just like, I wonder, it's just so fascinating to me because there's always, this is how you make songs. Like you make the songs and then they go on an album and then you think but then you think about all the songs that have been made for movies specifically. And I wonder what it is that a lot of the time, probably not all of the time, but a lot of the time makes them so good. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a whole category for them at the Oscars, Best Original Song. And I just wondered if, I don't know, just like thinking about creativity and what it is to make art and create art. And I wonder if the entity that is the movie or like the story that is the movie, I wonder if if it's more ripe for the picking when you were making songs about it. I would love to like in my head, I just wonder, is it easier? Is it harder? Or is it different? Is it like, what's the process?
I was thinking the other day, I have a friend, one of my closest friends here is a book publisher. That's with literature. She reads, I mean, I would say at least a book a day, not more, which is amazing. Wow. I know. Isn't that incredible? Just constantly reading. And I was thinking the other day about how the best movies are adaptations of books. And so this is such an interesting thing that we both happen to be thinking of that, it's the collaboration between the art forms or the multidisciplinary creation. Yeah, I don't know if maybe it's because it's more well-rounded, that the story gets to be told in multiple ways, or there's aspects of it that can only be told. So I think of like musical theater too, or if you ever think about musical theater, at a certain point, the emotions are so heightened that there's no way to express them other than to dance.
Yes. Isn't that wonderful?
Just the best.
It's the best.
That also made me think about how I miss throwing myself into something. I don't know what you said, but I just wrote it down. But I have a friend who's never been in animation before, but he's learning animation, or he's like starting to work in animation, and he's definitely upon this. And he spent the last few weeks just devouring everything about from Pixar and Disney and all these books and all of these podcasts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss that. I miss that creative wave. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, stop in that. I really miss that. Yeah, which isn't about productivity. Oh, it was about the James Bond thing. About, okay, well, we're going to do this. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a James Bond movie in my entire life. I have an idea of what the genre is or what they might look like. But if you were to tell me we're going to improvise a James Bond movie, okay, I'm going to go research. I'm going to watch every single one of them. I'm going to figure out.
Yeah.
I remember doing that in conservatory, or like with a lot of plays I've done, been able to do that. But I specifically remember at the end of our conservatory career, we did Come Back to the Five and Dine meeting. I think that was the name of it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I think I just actually came up with the name.
I think it is stored somewhere. It is stored in the ancient part of your brain.
That's crazy. But I remember we had a classmate of ours who I was never like this. And I remember looking at her and having a lot of respect for her for this and being like, wow, I wish I were more like that. That seems so beautiful. But she went to James Dean's. She was like, she learned everything about James Dean and watched all of his movies. It was about, the play was about like a James Dean fan club, for those who don't know. And like just devoured everything and even went to his apartment, his old apartment in New York City and across the street and just sobbed and looked. And I was like, and I remember her telling me this and I'm like, wow, doesn't that sound amazing to be that deeply like get in the wave, like in the, and I was like, I don't know that I'm that kind of person. I really am not.
And not everybody is, not every actor is. I used to do it up to a point, like in my research for certain things, mostly because I don't fully, oh, this is interesting what I'm about to say. Okay. I don't fully trust that me just showing up and stepping into a character is enough. I don't trust my whatever emotions need to be delivered. I don't trust that they're going to be there. So when I do it, when I like research a lot or visit the places or whatever, sometimes this is just basic research and I just feel this is a should, right? Sometimes it's, oh, that will be fun, like an excuse to just go out on a day and do something fun. But I think underneath all of that is I'm going to armor myself or I'm going to gather some rations to pull from because I don't fully trust that just me is going to be enough for whatever this needs to be, right? I think it's still helpful to do regardless of your intentions sometimes because, and it doesn't have to be, because of course it depends on your economic reality as well. I can't, if I'm about to do a play that happens in Paris, I might not be able to afford a plane ticket to Paris. But how can you like get the essence of what it is? Just to get the essence of it into your energy field or like you did, like storing it in some ancient part of your brain, like it does live somewhere in your energy field or in your soul or whatever. Even if you don't have any emotional or physical reactions to the thing as you are researching it or as you visit it. Every time I watch movies that take place in Paris, for example, I have this insane feeling that I'm just, I must have lived there once or I have to go there. Like I have to go back. I've never been to Paris in my life. I've never been to France in my life. But the thought that always comes up is, oh, I have to go back. Oh, I want to go back. Wow. And I'm like, oh, that's so weird. So it is somewhere. If you've been to a place, even if it was in a past life, it's somewhere. Yeah. So maybe the reason, now I'm thinking even further, maybe the research could be, I'm thinking for a future thing here, could be like, oh, I wonder if there's a version of myself somewhere in a different timeline or a past life of mine that has experienced this or has been to this place. I wonder if it can be more of a spiritual research or like other dimensions research more than like a human research on planet Earth. Does that make sense? I'm just thinking out loud right now. It's not anything that I've ever thought about. I'm just like, that would be an interesting process to see how that works. Can I just download shit? Yeah. Is there just an ancestor? Can I talk to, I'm not calling anything in right now, but can I talk to an entity that has this experience? Or can I merge with this entity for just a few minutes and then they go away so that I can just download the stuff that needs to be downloaded? Sure. I'm sure it's possible. It would be kind of cool.
All of this makes me think of my yes for the week, but really the last few weeks. I've been pretty quiet on here. Those of you listening at home weekly, those of our devoted fans who listening every week and taking notes and being like, hope Kristin's okay. I was not okay. Thank you for your concern.
I mentioned it in one of the intros. Not that you weren't okay, but just so you know, this episode is very Yara heavy. I don't want you to think that I'm being rude and just like nonstop talking and not letting my friend get a word in. But you know.
Yeah, it's been a rough few weeks, rough like month and a half, but in all good ways, like transformation. But the last few weeks especially, I've needed to stay quiet and just have heard from just my inner resource, allies, teachers, mentors, that it was a moment of permitting, and it was a moment of just like, don't share what's going on because it's still being processed, it's still being worked through. So my yes for the last several weeks has been exploring rather than controlling. And I feel like recently I've been trying to control a lot to try to find stability and get clear on things and put all my ducks in a row, and all of that I was trying to make myself feel safer, essentially. Yeah, for a lot of reasons. And I thought that too when I started this challenge in September of last year, 2023. I said to myself, I'm going to be leaving the country February 1st. What do you want to do before that? And I said, well, I want to say yes to everything so that I find out in 4 or 5 months. I want to see what changes. I just want to find out what happens, right? It wasn't like I want to make this happen or I want to do that. It was just, let's just find out what happens. If I say yes for 4 months straight, who will I be when I leave the country in February? And this I have. And over the last month and a half, 2 months, I've gotten away from that exploratory place. And I remember like some of my early examples of what I said yes to, one in particular where I just followed, there was a sign for a art gallery. And I just went in because I was like, well, I said I was going to say yes to things. So I went into the art gallery, and then they invited me to a concert that night, the gallerists. And I was like, okay, I think I have to say yes. So, okay, here we go. I'll go to this. And then I met some of the musicians, and he was like, come to my show next week. My sister and I have the show. Absolutely. Okay, I'll go sit. But I wasn't trying to do anything. And then the musicians were like, let's collaborate on this project. And I was like, okay, yes. But none of this was me trying to find a collaborator for a project. None of it was trying to control the circumstances, or it was all just, let's explore. Let's go in here. Let's say yes to this and go to this concert and see what happens and be open to what the universe wants to send me, as opposed to, I really want to find my collaborator for this project, so therefore I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Because also, if I was looking for a collaborator for a theater project, I don't know that I would have gone to a local gallery. Do you know, local art gallery?
Probably not.
Opening like, it was
like, when do either of us go to a gallery?
I don't even like visual art very much. I don't know what I was doing there. But it was very random. And then to go to a concert, there was none of this made any sense. Yeah. So I don't know if I was looking for if I was trying to control that, I never would have wound up at that occasion. And so now, rather than identifying the endpoint and saying, this is where I want to be, I'm just following the right path and saying, okay, we're just going to explore again and say yes to the sign for the gallery. Say yes to, I saw this Bashar, who's this guy channels this extraterrestrial being on the daily. Really interesting. Key to experiencing life or finding your path is just do what excites you the most at any given moment until it doesn't excite you. You can read a book or you can watch a TV show. In this moment, reading a book excites me more. Then I'm going to read the book. And then, all right, I read the book for about 15 minutes. Okay, that no longer excites me anymore. Going for a walk or going to a nap. Going for a walk. Okay, I'm going to go for the walk. Does that make sense? And the walk lasts 30 minutes. Oh, okay, I'm done with the walk. That coffee shop looks interesting. Do you know what I mean? And so and that feels very exploratory. And I don't know, it feels fun. It feels playful. And so that's where I'm at now. And I feel like I've really left behind in the last few days or so this need to control things and wind up at a destination. And also the reason, as I said this, the reason I wanted the destination, the reason I was trying to control was because I thought I would feel safer there. So it was really, what I had to do was resource the safety within myself so that I can feel safe while playing, as opposed to saying I'll feel safe when I get to this point, when I have X, Y, and Z ducks in a row and I have all this figured out, because the reality is you won't. Like the job doesn't solve any problem. Yana just had a huge booking. We just talked about it the other day. solve any problem.
No.
It's not going to solve the problem of not having a job.
And it didn't. Yeah.
Crazy. So it's like thinking, if I have the apartment, if I figure out my housing situation, which was another thing I was trying to do, and now I figured it out. And I'm like, oh, that didn't really solve any issues. I'm still having all of these other issues that come with having the apartment, having the subletter, and having it. You think that this is going to solve the problem. Once I can just find my subletter, I can find my apartment. No, it's okay. Now you have to deal with the apartment.
Right. Exactly. And the subletters. Yeah. You don't know what the subletters are going to be. I remember, I think it was Jim Carrey that said in some interview, it was like, I really wish that everybody would get everything that they want. Like the $1 million, the dream job. I wish that everybody could get everything that they want, because then they would see that's not it. That's not the answer. I'm definitely butchering this quote, but it was something along those lines of exactly what you were saying. It's like, you can get everything that you want, but it's not the answer. It's not going to fix everything. I think Bashar talks about this a lot, like about following the excitement, because people ask him a lot about like their purpose, or what is my path, what is my purpose, blah, blah, blah. And he talks about the following the excitement. And he says, and then regardless of what is your exact purpose or your exact path, if you just keep following the excitement, you will be living a full, fun, exciting life. So you're not going to be thinking so much about what is my purpose, what is my path, because you're just living and having fun and following the excitement. So you're having an exciting life by doing this. Yeah, it's so funny how we can control and try to find this safety in things, or we find safety in circumstances or in other people or money or jobs or whatever. And then that, because it's coming from a place of I want to be safe, it triggers this place in our brain that's sort of, I'm sure a neuroscientist would know better than I do, but that's how I experience it. It consumes everything. Like when you have, for example, when you have a health thing happening, even if it's just your ankle hurting or your shoulder or whatever, everything becomes about that. Like you can't do anything. You can't meet anybody, do anything without in the back of your mind, you're always thinking about this health thing. So you're protecting your ankle as you're walking down the street. It all consumes you. Sometimes like the human things, like the material things. And I haven't done for myself. I said last week that I wanted to say yes to peace. And I did that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a little sort of mini ceremony for myself. I used to do this a lot. I haven't done this in a long time. Just sat down with myself, read my cards, like journaled, like talking out loud to my guides, to my higher self, like whatever. Just had a moment for myself. And I sat down and I had my cards in front of me, and I could not, for the life of me, focus. I couldn't focus. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. What did I want this to look like? What is the purpose? What is the intention? What do I want? What am I trying to? And I was just like, oh my God, I can't hear myself. I cannot hear myself. So then I say out loud, I was like, okay, can we please push away? I need space. Can we push away the worries about the job? Can we push away the worries about my career and where it's going? I was also like ruminating. I was overthinking about like things that I said. I should have done this. I should have done that. I'm like, can we push that aside? Can we push aside the apartment situation? Because like we're about to move next month, and that has become all consuming as well. Can we push aside the fact that I don't like where my body is right now? Can we push aside? I just had to push so many things away. I was like, I need space. I need to be able to hear myself, because I don't even know. I feel so disconnected. And the reason I'm disconnected is because everything is like here, just like super, super close to all of my senses, and I can't think straight. I can't see clearly or hear myself. So that was the first thing that I had to do. It just took a few minutes asking all these things to just step aside so that I can have some space to work and to hear myself. And honestly, it was transformative. Like it wasn't very long. It was maybe an hour, but I had so many emotions that I needed to process. And I didn't even know that I needed to process them. And I think I didn't know because I was so distracted by all of the other things that like needed to get done or needed to get figured out. And yeah, so I processed a lot of emotions, and I was just like, okay, so where am I at? Like, how do I feel underneath all of this? What is all of this stress and distraction? What is it concealing? And at the end of the day, what it was concealing was just like this extreme existential loneliness that I was not aware of until I said it out loud. And I was like, whoa. And then I just looked into that and cried that out. And I was just like, because it was, so one thing, just as an example, speaking of things that like you get your dream, but it doesn't solve anything. So I booked this co-star role, which has been on my wish list for 2 years, and I just haven't been able to break through. Finally broke through, and I booked it. And then all of a sudden, it became so real that there was a part of me that was triggered, that I was like, oh, I miss my family and my friends in Iceland and like everybody in Iceland so much. And actually breaking through and actually booking this thing, like this actually being real, this can actually happen. I can actually do this. I can actually be here in this country and be a working actor in this country. Because there is in the back of your mind a tiny part of you. I know that people that have moved countries understand this. There is a tiny little part of you that wishes that things just don't work out and you can just go back home. You can just go back home to where it's easier. It's more relaxed. And my family's here. Everything I know is here. My language is here. My culture, everything. It would make everything so much easier if it just wouldn't work out, and then I would just give up and I would just go back home, and that would be that. Yeah. But so what I was doing subconsciously was just distracting myself with everything else. Everything else became a distraction so that I wouldn't have to deal. I couldn't be 100% happy. It was just impossible. It was impossible. And it's just the reality of what I'm doing. It's just the reality of it. And I know this and I do accept it. But it's every few months, it comes up again like this little bubble. I don't know if it's ever going to go away. It's just like when I said that my dream had a sty on it. This is the sty.
Yeah.
This is the spiritual sty that exists on my dream, is the fact that I am far away from my home country, family, and friends. And it is sad sometimes, and I can't just ignore that or keep pretending that it's fine, or, oh, I don't even like it in Iceland, which is true. That is true. That's always been true. Like, that's how I felt when I was a kid. But that doesn't mean that it's not sad or that I don't miss the people deeply. And I was so grateful that I had so much time by myself and that I took the time to do this and to see this. I did not know I was going to say this today. This was not on the agenda.
Yeah, it made me think, it's so interesting how much we wrap our happiness up in our dreams. Does that make sense? Oh, if I'll be happy, I'll be like, we have almost an image of utopia exists once I get that dream, once I marry that person, once I get the job, once I become
win the
CEO, win the Oscar, whatever. Once I have the mansion, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Remember our meditation teacher said once, he was talking about grasping and he was talking about attachment. He goes, I'm not going to wake up one day and say, I finally married J-Lo. Now I can be happy, or like something like that. And we think about, it's like a little stim in our household. It's like a little reference that we use all the time when we start to grasp or attach to outcomes. We're like, I finally married J-Lo.
I was not in that class, but I've heard you guys tell this story so many times or make this joke to each other that I feel like I was there. I must have missed that.
Yeah, you were definitely
there. It was really funny.
You were there in spirit.
Oh, so funny. Finally married J-Lo. Yeah, that's really what we're talking about. It's like the grasping for your dreams. First off, you're like betraying your current self. Do you know what I mean? You're saying that is of more interest. And this is, you know what I mean? As opposed to this exact moment, I'm only full when I make it. I can't actually enjoy my life fully or be fully present or even be fully with myself or alive until I achieve that thing, until I'm there in that utopia. Wow. And then also, yeah, I think to your point here, there is no perfect utopia. Once you get there, there's still a sty on the dream in some way. And what is that sty for different people? It'll be different things. But, I just think if we were to grasp less and just enjoy what's been given to us, and then it begs the question of, well, there's a balance here, right? Of striving for the things you want while also being fully present and grateful in what you have and knowing that this is enough. And so is that. And one is not better than the other. It's funny. I sometimes think, I don't know. I'm pretty nostalgic. Is that true? I don't know if that's 100% true. Am I nostalgic, Jara? You are. I know you are.
I know your dad is. You talk about it a lot.
I do talk about it a lot. I was just thinking, I'm not as nostalgic as my father. I don't know if I really am, or if I just have you and my dad are super nostalgic. Just a little.
I don't think that's how I would describe you,
Right,
but we
right.
do talk about so how I would put it for you in what I experienced with you is that I just feel like you honor the
Mm.
past a lot. Or I feel like you're just like, oh, I remember when I was in this place. Wow, I'm not there anymore. That's like more, yeah, you talk about the past a lot, but I don't feel like it's from a nostalgic place necessarily. I don't know. I don't get from you that you wish that you could be back there.
Yeah, I don't. That's so true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Whereas
Thank you.
I do
Good
sometimes.
words. Good words. But yeah, to that end, I mean, I would say you and my father, not me, maybe a tiny bit of me, but mostly not. That there's like a being wrapped up in the good old days. And do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? That it's like projecting in either direction. I'm seeing of that's where I was happy or that's when I will be happy. But the reality is we look back and like there's a version of me that couldn't wait to get back to Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
Is so excited to be her own boss. And is amazed, is thrilled that I shot this thing a few weeks ago, a couple months ago now, back in January. Never thought she would act again. And it's, wow, there's a version of me that was striving for this. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of like what I was saying at the beginning, that when I see movies that happen in Paris, I'm like, I want to go back. But do I want to go back to the place or do I want to go back to the time? And which is what the movie Midnight in Paris is all about, actually. It's about this guy who's very nostalgic and yearns to live in like the 1920s or 1930s. And then he travels back in time and he meets someone there and she wants to go. She sees the La Belle Époque, which is like many years prior. She sees that time as like the good old days, which is such.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. It's so good. You want to be anywhere but here. So like you were saying, so if you're not here, if you're not present, you're saying that who you are and what is right now isn't good enough. And you're just like ignoring all of the beauty and the light that exists in this moment.
Yeah. And this is also the only moment that exists. So like you're the beauty, period.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Past
Yeah,
doesn't exist,
exactly.
the future doesn't exist. All that exists right now. I've never seen Midnight in Paris, but I believe I've yet to go to Egypt, and I've been obsessed with Egypt since I was a kid. And I feel like I'm about to be so disappointed when I finally go. And I'm gonna be like, it's not 2,000 years ago.
Wait. The pyramids are complete? We were only halfway there when I was there.
Wait a minute.
That's also a thing. Do you want to go back in time and not have running water in the house and not have modern plumbing? Is that what you want?
I don't even want to go camping.
I don't
know.
Exactly. I don't. I'm really happy to be living in this time.
Do you know what your guesses for the week is?
Funny, I have an oracle deck right in front of me, and I flipped it over, and the card on the bottom says "Nurture yourself," which is exactly the place that I'm in right now. It says, "Investing time in self-care now will yield more energy for you later." But my yes was going to be to, I actually like that better, saying yes to nurturing. But my initial yes was going to be like saying yes to my body, which is the same thing, right? I have known that I needed to make changes and then that I needed to pay attention to my physical state for like my food and my diet and stuff like for many months now. And I have not been able to take any action and I do not know why. And then all of a sudden, after this full moon little ceremony that I had for myself, after I processed everything I needed to process and I put everything aside, then a couple of days later I was able to take action and I signed up for Orange Theory Fitness. I took a class. I have a meal kit. I bought a couple of things for my beauty regimen that I've just like been postponing getting. And the reason I wasn't doing it is because I didn't think I was worth it. I didn't think I was worth the money. I didn't think I was worth the investment. Because I was just like, I wasn't accepting what was in the here and now. I was like, what is in the here and now isn't good enough. It's not even good enough for me to invest in it now. I have failed so miserably in taking care of myself that I don't even think I'm worth the investment to change that. You know what I mean? It's like this weird backwards way of thinking. So I'm going to continue to do that this week. Just say yes to nurturing myself and taking care of my physical self. getting some vitamins and stuff. I haven't even been eating vitamins. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, you should take your vitamins. You are 35 years old. You need to take care of yourself. We want to live long. You should probably take some vitamins.
That's so funny. Mine too is about self-worth, but in a different way. And I'm just going to speak about it briefly because I think I need to sit with it a little bit. So I'm just going to say this week, my yes is to come out of this hermitude that I've been in for the last few weeks, but also that I've been in 34 years. 34 years. That's too long. I don't know. Since I was a teenager.
14?
Yeah, since I was like 14. So that's 20 years. Oh my God. No. I was 14 years. I was 14, 20 years ago. Jeez.
Yeah,
rough.
time to buy some collagen. That's what I did.
You really got me thinking. I was like, I'm taking vitamins a month. That's the advice for the week. Everybody take a vitamin. One vitamin.
Say yes to vitamins.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say I'm just going to use a phrase that my friend used to say when we were teenagers. Tony Cohn. If you're out there, Tony Cohn, I hope you're well. He was my best friend when we were teenagers at Frenchwood at summer camp. And he used to use this phrase, which I guess now is blown up, but I don't hear it. He used to say, come on, you got to risk it for the biscuit.
I do love biscuits. And now I live in the South, so I am like in the biscuit haven.
Biscuit land. Yeah, so for me, it's going to look more like socializing, asking for what I want, being more fully present, showing up more as myself and I'm not going to say what the than is because that has to be worked through and that's not public information yet because it just came to me. So I'm just going to say I'm going to risk it for the biscuit and I'm going to come out of my hermitude. And that's what this coming week is going to be. I'm going to take a vitamin.
I love it. Now I'm going to have to start saying risk it for the biscuit.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. God bless. Anyway, it's been real. Thank you for nice quality time. And I'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.
That concludes this week's episode of The Weekly Yes. You will find us on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube. And you can follow us on Instagram as well at The Weekly Yes. Keep saying yes, and we'll see you next week.